Hello and welcome to another Dula Yacht Coffee Break. Today I am joined by Jonathan, who's the MD of Maritime Aviation. Thank you very much for joining, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Today we just wanted to talk about certification and the process of gaining certification for your heli deck and for your operation. So I suppose my first question to you, Jonathan, is how do we go about getting a commercially registered heliport?
So a heliport, really, if it's going to be used for commercial operation, needs to be designed into the vessel. So at the very early stages, that needs to be considered by the designer and the owner's management team, exactly what they want to have, what's their operational output going to be, what do they want to do with the helicopter, do they know which helicopter they want to operate. And once they've looked at some of these questions, then they can start designing it into the vessel and against the standard that needs to be met. So that could be Red Ensign, it could be ICAO document 9261, which is the heliports manual and has shipboard heliport standards in there. So it's critical to understand what the owner wants and then design that into the vessel. So assuming that this has been completed, then it's a case of using an aviation inspection body to certify well, at this stage it'll be the design, make sure it meets all the technical standards that will be required once the vessel is built, and then the aviation inspection body will come back later on, just before delivery normally, and make sure that all of the technical and operational standards have been met.
Okay. And suppose from that they again get the two or potentially two certificates. So you're looking at the operational side and you're looking at the structural side.
Yes.
Often, are you getting involved very early on in the design stage? Because obviously we talk about, or we have talked about before, kind of kick-off meetings, and they're very much orientated around the class and flag side of items. But actually, there is an emphasis now, especially when you see some of these larger yachts with more than one heliport, that actually having the helicopter, say technical experts involved, because like you say, it's a large asset that's going to either be used in landing, which obviously impacts an awful lot of stuff. So like the safety and the firefighting and the equipment side of stuff. So I suppose, are you seeing that a lot more from your guys' side of actually being involved a lot earlier on in the design process?
Yes, we always like to be involved as early as possible because that's when we can add the most value to the client. Our experience over many years has been in the efficient and safe operation. So again, focusing on what the owner wants and how we can help deliver it. Because very often these vessels, and you mentioned some of the larger ones, they've got more than one heliport, they've got hangarage, they've got refuel systems. They are not just an area to make short-term drop a passenger off and pick them up. So they're very often built into the vessel because they go around the world with the vessel. So yeah, making sure that we can get in early and make sure all of the considerations are factored in at the design stage can save an awful lot of heartache and money ultimately towards the when the build is nearing completion, because all of these factors are being considered based on the requirements of the owner.
Yeah, okay. And we're seeing an awful lot, and we get asked an awful lot, that the vessel may not have a certified heli deck, but that doesn't, they still want to have some kind of certification. Now I know the Red Ensign do the HLAC and the HLATC, but is there, or can they get a certification solely just for the kind of operational aspects and the certification for the crew? Is that possible, or?
So I think if we break it down again, look at the two certificates that you can get for commercial certification. There's the technical certificate, and I think from what you're saying, the question is those vessels are not going to manage to reach the technical side, the dimensions, for instance, the obstacle sectors. They won't be achievable. The two certificates come as a package when you have a commercial vessel. Yeah. So the HLAC won't be achievable in that sense. However, even for non-commercial vessels, there is best practice laid down by the commercial requirements. And in terms of having an effective aviation safety management system on board, following an iterative process of having an aviation safety audit, updating the aviation hazard log, writing initially and then updating on a regular basis the operations manual for the heliport, and that includes training for the crew to a recognised standard, equipment requirements that are equivalent to the commercial standard and thereby best practice. Those kind of elements can be achieved even, and they're considered sometimes beyond compliance. However, to improve the safety management of the aviation piece on board, then yeah, absolutely they can follow that. So for training to for the crew to have industry recognised training, even if it's not an absolute requirement as it would be for a commercial deck, then that's only going to enhance safe operations on board.
Okay, fantastic. And even if, if they do that kind of voluntary compliance side, and they look at that, how often would you recommend that people come in and almost audit them? So, even though they're not getting the certificate, they could still follow an awful lot of that process.
Yes.
I mean, is that an annual inspection from someone like yourselves or an AIB that could come in and just give them the reassurance that at least the crew are to a level that everyone would expect to be able to gain the Red Ensign certification if they were to have a certified helideck?
So in that case, we work with the clients. Clearly there's crew rotation, and there'll be different times new crew that haven't been trained, and obviously if the owner wants to be operating the helicopter and they are having a voluntary engaging in the aviation safety management piece voluntarily, then we will go back and deliver training as and when required. Likewise, the audit, yes, it could be annual, could be every 2 years, depending on the ship and the program. But it has to be an iterative process whereby even if nothing changes, it's being considered. No new hazards have been introduced. For instance, if the aircraft type changes, it moves from type A to type B, that could be bigger, it could have different equipment fit, it might need a different level of support. So that's a classic example where we might need to make some considered amendments to the manual, and then we go through a process of doing an audit, updating the hazard log, writing the procedures, updating the procedures, publishing them, and then training the crew to those standards.
Okay, fantastic. Also, what kind of qualifications would they get? There's an awful lot of training and items out there. What should the crew be looking for, and what qualifications should they have?
Okay, so the best practice standard is one of two, and I would actually say that's only really one. The UK MCA has a published standard for heliport crew, for helicopter landing officers and helicopter deck assistants, HLOs and HDAs, you may have heard them referred to. And there is a set training program syllabus for that, which lasts for 2 years once a crew member has been trained. Equivalent standards, there is one for the offshore oil and gas industry called a PETO. PETO stands for the Offshore Petroleum Industry Training Organisation. And that's a different kind of syllabus, and it's not really going to be achievable for yacht crew unless they have come from the offshore oil and gas industry, and it's then seen as an equivalent qualification that's accepted. But in terms of for the yachting industry in particular, then the MCA is seen as the go-to standard.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Jonathan, thank you very much for your time today. Guys, I hope you found it useful. Again, if there's any questions or queries that you have, please get in touch with either of us. Our details will be at the end. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.